Week 3 of the Wynwood Melly murder trial has gotten way more interesting. After weeks of numerous prosecution witnesses failing to provide any reasonable information, they finally brought in an undercover gang-affiliated cop to take the stand. However, there was a catch. We don't know what he looks like as he's pooch-shiced up, hiding his identity. Then they revealed text messages of Melly telling his mother, Jamie King, to buy him a legal gun, aka the Glockiana. Now lastly, they brought in a gun shooting reconstructive expert, Sergeant Chris Williams, who verbatim said there's only one shooter and the shots came from inside of the vehicle. The undercover cop in the trial caused a lot of uproar because he's been seen wearing a mask and you can't really evaluate his demeanor during his testimony. Now the cop doesn't want to show his face because he's undercover, infiltrated in some gang activity, and people definitely put a bag on his head.
I would like to see the outfit that he is supposedly going to wear to disguise himself. It's a violation of the Confrontation Clause of the U.S. Constitution. And the state should have, with all due respect, filed a motion giving us notice of that.
Regarding this particular witness, did you take his deposition?
We did take his deposition.
And was he wearing a mask then or not?
Yes, sir.
I'm trying to figure out, is this the same type of mask that he wore then as he's going to wear now?
Yes, sir.
I think the court needs to see it because it covers his entire face other than his eyes. So the jury cannot see and observe his demeanor. I really want the court to see it.
That's why I want to know if he took his deposition, if he's wearing a mask during the deposition.
I just wanted to clarify two things. Mr. Allenstein is making the argument. The record is clear that none of the threats that this witness, that were referred to by the state concerning this witness, have anything to do with this defendant.
Like, for all we know, this could be a federal informant posing as a cop, and this could just be the terms of probation. Hey, we know you're into some ish, we'll let you out. If you don't get this information, we'll send you back to jail. Like, I'm not saying this person is legit because, like I said, we do know they're actual cop and then working with other cases, but it's just all weird to me. One of the members of the jury pool felt very uncomfortable with this cop wearing a mask and wrote a detailed note to the judge detailing a past trauma experience of her witnessing a robbery.
How many years did you spend specifically in the gang and organized crime section of the Strategic Investigations Division?
From March 2018 till 3 weeks ago.
Have there been credible threats on your life?
Yes.
Is there currently a credible threat on your life?
Yes.
In terms of is there an amount of money assigned to the death of you that has been offered up? In terms of your safety and security, why do you wear the mask for those reasons?
To protect my family. Multiple people in Broward County involved in the investigation work after threat. And outside of that investigation, there's photographs of deputies being sent around, people trying to figure out who I am and what I look like. And that's a kind of a concern for me. If it was just one person, I'd probably just write it off. But yeah, after 5 or 6 cell phones got downloaded and there was pictures of many deputies being sent around saying, "Is this Danny Polo?" I'm like, okay, these guys are actually looking for me.
Then he's going to speak on the XSS Tachyon murder trial.
Have you testified before the Honorable Judge Michael Usan in this courthouse?
Yes.
Was that in or around February and March of this year, 2023?
Yes.
And what case was that on?
That was the XXX Tentacion case.
And that was the death of that individual?
Yes.
How many times did you testify in that case?
It was twice.
This undercover cop has been a part of many trials, including the XXX Tachyon murder trial that happened in March, to where the killers got life, to which they deserved, of course.
The first note indicated that was a question. Why does he get to see us and we don't get to see him? So I think that lets us know that it's the mask that's of concern and that the presumption of being robbed was being robbed with a mask.
I need a moment. I can't listen properly. When I was a child, I've seen someone get robbed and I am having an anxiety attack.
Now, Melly's defense is extremely smart for piggybacking off the fact that a juror feels uncomfortable with a masked individual giving a key testimony about Melly and his gang affiliation to the Blood Gang. They're trying to say before that Melly killed his 2 best friends and asked to join the G-Shine Bloods, a set that he's already been running with. Now, this is 2023, not the 1980s, and the criteria for joining a gang is much lower, and if they felt that he did a crime in furtherance of a gang, Why not indict him on a RICO? And sure, this is crazy. I'm not saying that they need to indict him on something else, but if you believe he's gang-oriented and did it in furtherance of the gang, those are the criteria for a RICO. Like, what's going on? The prosecution is throwing allegations and pretty much anything negative they can find and hoping it will stick. So far, it's been 3 weeks and nothing is sticking. Until they found a cell phone that they believe belonged to YNW Melly and have been battling back and forth with the prosecution and defense over who it belongs to, because multiple members between Juvie, Borland, Sack Chaser, Melly, they all have used his phones, and there's pictures of Melly on the phone, of course, but everyone has used his phone. So Melly's defense is arguing who's the true owner of this phone and that there's no disposable evidence that proves that it was him, or he owned the phone, I should say. But there's one piece of evidence that is very damning towards Melly, where he asked his mom, Jamie King, "Can you get me the Glock, Yana?" And he said, "Go get me a Glock ASAP."
So for here, no, I'm not. Your actions I take up for you. I have people telling me your son doesn't care about you. That Jamel Demon's mother is Jamie King. Here she is identifying that she is speaking to her son in that. So then I want to go then to after the time of the homicide, in which Jamie King is sending a text message to her son, "Send me your location. I'm in Stewart. I love you so much." He then sends a return the location showing at or about the time of the crime as to who was using and doing that. "Okay, love you," again from Jamie King. "I'm at your gate. I'm going to get the trash." The next response is, "Bring Mariah," which you honored already heard testimony that Felicia Holmes, her daughter, Mariah Hamilton, was in a dating relationship with this defendant, and that at this time, and that there was conversations, and that she has identified Mariah as Mariah Hamilton. Then there is okay. And it continues. He then asks his mother to buy him a Glock ASAP, and telling her, like, go now. So she then responds, "Okay, what's wrong?" She says, "I got your 45. Then his response, "I just don't want no illegal gun." Well, that's not illegal. Continuing on, "But I'd rather have a Glock 40 or a 19. She says, "Okay." His response is, "I'll pay you when you get down here." She then says, "Okay." Then,
Your Honor, I object to this. Is she going to read the entire phone? This does not go to the heart of our objection.
Then they brought back the undercover cop for the defense to cross-examine of him being a blood gang expert.
Can you tell us how much of your training was actually gang-related?
The majority of it, bulk of it.
How much? Time-wise? Do
The
you
exact
know?
hours, over 400 hours.
Over 400?
Yes, sir.
Okay. 13 or 30?
30.
30.
Yes, sir.
So when you gave us the number of 30 suspects,
That was blood investigations.
okay, that was blood only.
Yes, sir.
Okay. You know undercover law enforcement officers who are members of gangs?
In an undercover capacity.
Yeah. Undercover. Are you?
I am not, sir.
You did. So you would agree that those undercover officers who went that step would probably know more about the intimacies than you would?
I was the case agent on that. The case agent being the person that leads the investigation and tells the undercover what to do and what evidence I need to gather, what evidence is beneficial to prove the gang, and I collect all the evidence, meaning knowledge, instructions from other gang members. So I direct the investigation, they're the undercovers.
Okay.
So when I'm the undercover, someone tells me what to do because it's their investigation.
Okay, but in an undercover capacity, you never went to the step of getting inside a gang so you could be in the room where intimate gang activity was actually being discussed among gang members only.
It's recorded in the room. Undercover operations are recorded audio, video. So the fact that I wasn't present doesn't mean I didn't see it.
Okay.
Mr. Demmons was a member of this gang, and if he was to look into it further, multiple videos of Mr. Demons claiming G-Shine or GKB as a gang that he belongs to.
What about adopting the style or dress of a criminal gang?
Mr. Demons was observed multiple times, more times than I can count, wearing the colors red, colors green, and like I stated, the foot soldiers are told to wear tan or brown. And Mr. Demons, there's a bunch of pictures of him wearing this tan trench coat that falls in line with the time where he would have been a foot soldier.
What about adopting use of a hand signs that's identified as used by a criminal gang?
Yes, Mr. Demons knows all the gang signs, and he does them very well. He can do them very quickly, a lot faster than I can.
The next day, they brought in a medical examiner who was working at the hospital the night of the murder that boiled and drove them to the hospital. She spoke very long, displaying her abundant knowledge of gunshot wounds and the whole topic.
Okay, so Dr. McDougall, with regards to the number of autopsies that you have performed during your career, where are you at currently?
Over 3,000.
Have you had the opportunity to come to court before to testify as an expert in the area of forensic pathology?
I have
How many times?
over 100.
So right now she's breaking down the gunshot wounds of YNW Sack Chaser.
I can. So for gunshot wounds, for forensic pathologists, there's two kinds. There's a penetrating gunshot wound. Goes in, doesn't come out. Penetrates. I recover a projectile. Then there's a perforating gunshot wound. It perforates the body. I have an entrance, and I have an exit, and I don't collect a projectile.
How many autopsies have you done in which gunshot wounds have been a cause of death?
Oh, probably 600 or 700.
Now this doctor goes into a very deep analysis explaining the 3 types of gunshot wounds and how to tell which gunshot wound or what actually happened based off the distance and the reflection on the skin from the gunshot wound.
There is what's called a contact gunshot wound, which means that the muzzle of the gun is up against the target when the gun goes off. In those cases, you have a nice round deposition of soot on the entrance wound. The next is called intermediate. With an intermediate gunshot wound, if you take your target and your gun and you move away from your target, okay, so you're far enough away now that you're not going to leave a nice ring of soot, you're going to get something that's called stipple. Okay, so the gunpowder coming out of the gun will tattoo the skin. You will get a nice pattern, a spray of stipple on the skin. Those are intermediate. With indeterminate gunshot wounds, that either means that the muzzle of the gun is far enough away from the target that all the gunpowder falls off before the projectile hits the body, or there's something in the way of the skin, between the skin and the weapon, that any evidence of close range firing would be on that clothing. Okay? If you have someone that's shot in the chest, you'd want to look for evidence of close range firing on what they're wearing, because it has to go through that before it hits the body. And that gunpowder is not going to get to the skin because the clothes are in the way.
Okay, and so, Doctor, I want to make sure I understand, on intermediate,
Yep.
on that, do you do any range of fire testing?
On clothing,
What about on skin or human body?
you have to do it, no. You have to do it on clothing.
Is any of that your area of expertise where you would recreate that?
On the clothing?
Yes.
No.
Based off the seating arrangement and the whole bullet trajectory remade by the prosecution, they believe that Sack Chaser was actually asleep because he got shot in the back of his head.
Okay. And so, Dr. McDougall, if you'd be kind enough to show where on that head would be entrance wound A.
Position of that entrance wound is about right here. This is a perforating gunshot wound, which means I have an entrance and an exit.
And where was that exit?
The exit is on the right temporal scalp.
And how is, I'm going to skip ahead to that exit, which is E.
That's correct.
Okay. And so is E shown on there?
The approximate location of the exit wound on this demonstrative is about right there.
Then the defense cross-examined the medical examiner, looking to show negligence in their operation by asking certain questions such as, what did they do with Sachs' hair, and if they tested his body for gunshot residue. Then following this, they brought in a different medical examiner for YNW Juvie.
The external examination revealed that this person was 6'4".
Correct?
He weighed 172 pounds,
Yes, sir?
and his hair was 6 inches in length,
Correct?
braided.
Correct?
The pictures I saw did not show the braids on his hair. Did you cut his hair?
We shave the hair around the wounds.
Okay, did you save the hair so that it could be tested to determine if there was any GSR or gunshot residue on it?
We shave the hair so we can see the characteristics of the wound.
And what did you do with the hair? Did you bag it so that it could be sent to the lab to be examined to determine if there was any GSR or any projectile fragments on it?
I did not.
Detective Moretti was present, correct?
That's correct.
You've been advised he's the lead detective in this case, correct?
He's the detective that called in the case. That's correct.
Okay. And you indicated that one of the wounds was in the chest area.
Correct.
Were you advised at any time that this person was wearing clothes?
Yes. My job's causing manner of death on the body. Right?
Okay. And the reason I ask that is because the height of the person, the weight of the person, the fact that he had 6 inches of braided hair, and the clothes that he was wearing would assist if anyone attempted to do what is known as a trajectory reconstruction, correct?
So this medical examiner who worked at the hospital that Melly's friends were brought to, of course, when they died, seems to know a lot about what she's talking about. She talked about the various different types of gunshot wounds and how she can tell that one was intermediate versus perforated. And basically, she wanted to say that they know that it was fired from within 3 feet or 3 inches to 3 feet away. And because the shell casings and the gunshot residue didn't land on anyone, it landed on the seat. And that's how you know that it was within an intermediate range, because if it was point blank and close, it would have for sure been on them. The prosecutor, I should say the defense, of course, is doing a very good job trying to deteriorate what she's saying, but she kind of came in with a solid textbook answer for every question. So it's not like her making the prosecution look good. She just knows a lot of information about doing autopsies because she's been doing this for how many years. She's done hundreds of bodies, hundreds of people who died because of gunshot wounds. So she knows a lot about what she's talking about, and it's not looking the best for the defense right now. But like I said, 3 weeks in, the defense has been leading. The prosecutor's just been throwing Hail Marys and nothing has been being caught. And this is the first thing that kind of put a little doubt, making Melly look bad. Then they brought in another examiner who would speak on YNW Juvie.
Going on to the next photograph, what are we looking at here?
This is a clean headshot of our Mr. Christopher Thomas.
Okay. When you say clean, what does that mean?
This means that after we have documented opening the body bag, we take a series of photos that depict how the body is received, and they may be covered in blood. So after we clean the decedent, then we start documenting the photograph, start documenting injuries after they've been cleaned.
Okay. So Dr. Sauer, in terms of the range on a wound with this type of stippling, do you have an opinion as to the distance or range that the firearm would have been?
I can give a range based on a textbook answer, because to get the specific range you need the type of gun and the same type of ammunition that was used to cause this wound.
So I feel like her testimony, I don't want to say it wasn't as pivotal, but it wasn't as linear as other person's. She talked about obviously the clean gunshot, which kind of we knew, I guess. But let's just wait to see what the actual shooting reconstructive expert had to say the next day. So here we got Christopher Williams, the shooting reconstructive expert.
And could you describe to the ladies and the jury what area of the car did the shots that killed Anthony Williams emanate from?
From the driver's side back seat.
As to the shot that killed Christopher Thomas, where did that shot emanate from?
Driver's side back seat.
Okay. Is it possible for there to have been two shooters inside that car?
No,
Why not?
there is no time.
So explain what that means.
So, Mr. Williams was not even aware he was about to be shot. When Mr. Williams was shot, Mr. Thomas puts up his hands and is shot, and then is shot again.
Okay.
There's no time for anybody to switch a firearm. If there were, I believe one of those individuals would be alive.
Can you say the length of time between the fatal shots and then the staged drive-by shots later on?
It was enough time for the heart to stop beating, for there to be no circulation due to the wounds that I examined from the medical examiner's office. None of the wounds have any blood in them, which tells me that they're all ante-mortem wounds. So the time was long enough for the heart to stop beating.
So they actually wanted to re-replicate what actually happened with people in the car, and Chris Williams continues to speak about it.
Can you state how the driver was positioned when the shots occurred for the backseat passenger, Mr. Thomas?
The driver, in my opinion, was seated in the front seat when the shots were fired inside the vehicle.
And in terms of how would blood get on the back of his shirt?
Because he's seated in that position.
So this week seems to be the best week ever for the prosecution. Over the past 2 weeks, they've been taking nothing but losses. They've been bringing up different stuff like Melly's a gang member, which, like, okay, even if he is, how does that correlate to the murder? And basically having people recreate the scene before who didn't really know much about it. Phone experts saying that he wasn't at the scene. And basically, for the first time, for the prosecution, actually something that's like damning evidence. You know, this guy they brought in, Chris Williams, the gun reconstructive expert, he knows what he's talking about. He's standing on business, everything he's saying that he believes. And they even brought in the medical examiner a couple days before. And she's saying, you know, the bullet came to the back of the head, left to the scalp or left to the skull. And he was sleeping when it happened, talking about sack chase in the front. And basically, this is like the first major win the prosecution had through this entire case. You know, I could talk about this guy, Christopher Williams, I should say, testimony for the entire day. But I didn't want to bore you guys because this is like one of my longest videos ever. And I'm trying to, like, you know, keep it short, concise content. But I haven't put anything out in the past week on this trial, so I had to update you guys. But the next video will be about this Christopher Williams gun reconstructive expert testimony because there's just more little nuances to debunk, and I want to just give you everything and, you know, giving a short bit pieces. But anyways, thank you guys for watching. Jared Star, I'm gone.